Hi, I'm Maya Table, ADWEEK 2021 Creative 100. You may know me from my work with Nickelodeon, Neo, SoundCloud, and Head & Shoulders. And this is the Riveting Academy. Oh, networking. So I'm an introvert, a lot of creatives are. And networking is really tough. It's a frightening thing when you speak in your head and not out loud. So when I would go to different events, it was really tough for me to connect with people. So I started really to hone in on the ways that felt the most natural to me. And then also I thought about the end goal. The end goal is that when people think about video, I want them to think about me. And people don't think about video all the time. They may think about it once a year, but I needed to do something to stand out enough when they had those opportunities, they thought, okay, Maya's that person. So I just really tried to be a bit more personable with people. And some of those were finding things that were of interest to that one potential client. So if I saw that they wrote an article, then I would read it and say, hey, I loved your article and blah, blah, blah. Or if I saw that they were having an event, I would go to the event and just show up for them as well. Because I found that when people find that you are genuinely interested in them, they will lean into you as well. Going to networking events was extremely frightening because it felt like you had to have a business card, and also you had to have like your 1 to 2 sentences down. And if you didn't have that first intro, then people would just, it's like they don't want to hear you anymore. So that was the toughest part, thinking about, the most important things to say, what's going to catch someone's attention. And I really had to speak to friends and family to get them to tell me what are the most interesting things about my work that I should say first. And so I would usually tailor it per event. But that was actually the biggest part, finding the things that keep someone's attention. Because if you're like me, when you're talking to somebody and they look away or they look at their phone, it's extremely discouraging. So that's probably the worst part about networking events. There are a few great ways to network. The core of that is having really great work yourself. So the first thing is honing in on your skills so that when you do say, hey, look at my work, then it's amazing. Because at the end of the day, people want to work with the best. This is period. You can be a woman, you can be brown, black, white, it doesn't matter. So that helps you build that confidence to actually step out and talk to people. So that's kind of what I did first, because it helped me step out more confidently. And then I just, you have to do things with knots in your stomach. Like every day I'm nervous about talking to somebody or sending a text to a client as a follow-up, but I do it anyway because I like to make money. So you have to think about your end goal and just kind of, suck it up to get through those things. So one of the things I do is a lot of creatives are not on LinkedIn, and there are so many clients on there. Right now, still 95% of my clients are just from word of mouth. And I try to be really intentional about that because I am an introvert, so I know okay, I need to build my website so that it looks on point and it looks inviting to potential clients. I need to be, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. You just want to meet clients where they're at. So you want to be on LinkedIn just a little bit and Instagram a little bit too, because there are clients on there. You don't have to be on them every day, but just enough so that if I'm seeking someone on Facebook, then you're on Facebook as well. Another thing too, client retention is a great way as well. So if you had one client and it went great, you had a good opportunity to work with them, and they loved your work, then send them a follow-up. And it doesn't have to be an email saying, hey, just checking in. It can be something like, you send them a Christmas card. Or you like a post or something. So just think about ways to be creative. And the thing is, you are a creative person, so you know how to do this, and that kind of feels a bit more genuine if it's something that's natural to you as well. Doing your research on people and clients is effective because everyone loves the ego stroke. Every single person loves the ego stroke, and that's just whether you're a person that likes more of it or just a little bit, it helps everyone feel seen. I always find that all clients want to feel seen in a certain way, and it also lets their guard down so they don't have to come in feeling boastful because they know that you've seen their work. So that's really the biggest part is learning people as humans and then finding out how to connect. And so that's one way I found. I'm like, oh, everyone likes the ego stroke, whether it's someone that seems mean and you compliment them on your shoes, or if it's a producer that seems kind of uptight and you say, hey, I watched this film that you produced. I actually just did that last week. I had a producer that I was working with. I'm directing a show on TNT, and so there was a producer I was working with, just kind of seemed just extremely cocky, which is totally fine. And so he told me a film that he produced. That night I went and watched it, and the next day we talked about it, and he's been like wrapped around my finger ever since. But so I think it's just finding out what that human connection is to everyone. People like to work with who they like, so it's up to you to find those opportunities. And if you know a client that's like-minded, find a way to connect with them, and just be genuine. Everybody isn't going to like you, and that's okay. So as soon as you become okay with that, then the process really does come a lot easier. So people get in so much trouble when it comes to copyright, intellectual property, fair use, just not knowing the difference. And it is tough sometimes to know the difference between all of those. IP, intellectual property, pertains to written work, songs, articles, and copyright is just the C with the circle. That's it. But no, copyright really pertains to logos, things that really involve around branding. Some examples of copyright are, say, for instance, Coca-Cola's logo, or the Starbucks cup that was in Game of Thrones, or the Peloton that was in the Sex and the City reboot. Intellectual property deals with, so say, Forrest Gump. You can't recreate the film because that's someone else's intellectual property. So it's really important. One, you can watch so many YouTube videos about the differences between copyright, intellectual property. You really want to talk to a lawyer to understand in a way that works for the piece of work that you're currently working on or potentially want to create. The one I always think about is the Rihanna video, S&M, many moons ago. And I remember when I first saw it, I was like, that looks like a David LaChapelle photo. And David LaChapelle sued Rihanna because in the video she recreated a scene from his photography. So it's different if you get his permission or you ask him to shoot it, but they didn't do any of that, which was really interesting. So he sued them because that was something that he created with his own mind. There's a really fine line when it comes to intellectual property. Like you can't copyright the sun, you can't copyright the clouds, things that are in everyone's video, so it has to be super specific. So it's really important that you do your research on what's been done already, even if it's down to wording, or even if you're paying homage to somebody, you still want to check to see if you can use that. Sometimes when you watch YouTube videos and you see people explaining, this is a breakdown of this music video, they can do that because that's fair use. They aren't trying to recreate that piece of work. You'll still have to go to the original piece of work to, understand what actually happened in that video. So that's why it's okay for, YouTubers or even like Stephen Colbert to talk about pieces of work. So one personal story is, 2 years ago, I created a film called Hit the Road. It was based on personal experience. One time, an ex-boyfriend and I broke up, and he played Hit the Road Jack when I was like packing up and I'm all mad. But I was actually giggling because I'm like, oh, that's funny. That is actually funny. And so I played Lauryn Hill, Lost Ones. And then we went back and forth just playing songs on a loudspeaker for about a good 10 minutes. And so that's what I based the film off of. So my film really didn't have a lot of speaking. But what had happened was I used those songs in my film. And so when I submitted it to film festivals, I think it really only got into one because no one wanted to touch it because I didn't have the rights and royalties from all those music producers. So that was something I always think about. Like, I wish I would have spoke to a music supervisor and just, done a little bit more work so I could give myself a better opportunity, especially after working so hard on that film. It still got best editing, and I was the editor, but that was the one that still felt like the film could have gone a lot further if I would have used, music that was royalty free, even down to putting it on YouTube. Can't put it on there, or Vimeo because of the music that was in it. The right thing to do is don't ever use anything of Beyonce's because she'll shut everything down. And the best thing is actually just to use royalty-free websites, whether it's for images, it's for songs, or you can go to a composer and have them create the music for you. And it can be expensive, but it's not as expensive as paying, for the royalty on music. But just take a little bit more time. And even when you're working with the composer, it can be something that's super gratifying. So I would just say steer away from it because it gets really, really sticky. websites, you need one, number one. Number two, don't make it too busy. I think there are so many great places that you can build a website, from Squarespace to Wix to WordPress. But the main thing is just looking at people that have websites that you love and trying to come as close as possible to those. And then also, once you build your website, take a few days to just stop and look at it, have friends and family look at it, ask can they understand what it is that you do. I find a lot of times as creatives, we don't toot our own horn. So sometimes I'll work with an editor and I can't tell that he's an editor. I remember I was working with one editor and his website was photos, and I was like, I can't tell what you do. So I think one part is just kind of like getting out of your own way is the biggest thing. It's really tough because I'm in my way a lot too. So take some time and build your site based on what other of your peers doing or people that you want to be like, and then go from there. So the main things to include on your website are your work. If you want to direct music videos and you don't have any yet, then you need to do a spec music video. You could ask a friend or an indie artist, can you direct for them? If you want to be an editor, you need to edit something. You just need to have some type of samples of the work that you want to get. Your website is for the work that you potentially want to have, not the work that you have right now. So that's why it's important to do spec pieces. So you have your work, and then also know that people are going to meet you where you're at. A lot of times I see people that think they have to do the most grand, website or grand music video, but there are so many people there that want that, and sometimes there's really big stars who just want this new up-and-coming person. So the main thing is just finding those pieces of work that really speak to your style, and then having your contact information. Do not use a form. I hate when people have forms because it makes it just one more step to contact you, and people work really quickly. So if you just have your email and your phone number, just do that, because a form is like, that's too much trouble, I'm gonna go somewhere else. So contact information, your work, and sometimes your social media. So it's important to update your website. I update mine once a month, honestly, because your career can change so fast, your eye changes. If you're like me, you hate your work after a week, and it takes you a few more months to like it again. So it's important to change up your website, and you'll also see what resonates with people when they view your website for the first time, how clear it is. So if you have something that you filmed 2 years ago and it looks dated, take that off, remove it. Just put, the newest things on there. And also don't put too much, because sometimes less is more. Because usually people, it's just like, on dating websites. I scroll down to like, what's the worst looking picture of him, and I go with that. And so that's what people do with your work as well. So just put the best things on there and continue to, curate the pieces that really speak to you as a creative.